Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the March 4th Investment and Strategy Committee meeting. My name's Dylan Bressie. I get to chair this meeting. On this committee are Councillors Blackmore, Mayor Clayton, and Councillor Berg. And I am going to start our committee meeting day. Committee members are Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Berg, Mayor Clayton, and myself. What? Oh, okay. My apologies. I'm used to just reading the first three in eScribe, but with Councillor Bosch's resignation, the voting members of this committee are myself, Councillor Blackmore, and Mayor Clayton. My apologies.
Sorry, just a point of order. There will be an organizational change next week approved at council. Then you will get a new committee member.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm just so used to reading the first four that appear in eScribe. Anyways, let me read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. And with that, could I ask for a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Councillor Blackmore, all in favor?
Mayor Clayton in favor.
That motion carries. And with that, we're going to go to delegation business. So, Mr. Podolski, I'm acknowledging you because you were the first one on the delegation request form, but I don't know if it's actually you speaking for your group or someone else. So if somebody could turn on their camera and introduce themselves, I'd appreciate that.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So we just wanted to say good morning to everybody and thank you for your time.
Yeah, and sorry, before you get into it, can you just introduce who you are?
You bet. We're part of APG Property Group.
Okay.
We're local developers here, and Andrzej Podolski is sitting next to me. And then also we have another team member, Jakub, who's also part of this meeting, but he's muted at this moment.
Okay, and sorry, what's your name again?
Greg Podolski.
Greg Podolski. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Podolski. I appreciate it. So what our procedure here is you get 5-ish minutes to present on whatever you want to present on, and then I'll give my colleagues an opportunity to ask you any questions they might have, and then we'll decide if we want to do business out of this. So I'll turn it over to you, and I'll give you about 5 minutes. I'll give you a heads up if you're starting to be in danger of going over.
You bet, no problem. So, we just wanted to kind of give you an idea as to who we are. So we're a family business that has lived and invested in Grande Prairie for 43 years. And over the years, we have built a track record of successful local projects and businesses. This is our home. All of our businesses operate here and our taxes stay here. So we just want to make sure you understand that every project that we take on, it's designed for long-term ownership. And that means creating developments that we really do believe in and will contribute to the city in a lasting way. So that's why we wanted to speak with you today to outline why we think that a 15-year municipal tax exemption for large-scale multi-family developments is essential in order to solve Grande Prairie's housing challenges that we're facing. I don't have to teach you. I think you know that our vacancy rate is low. It's around that 1.5% mark, well below the healthy average of 3 to 5%. And some might assume that with such strong demand, development should automatically be driven. But if that were true, why aren't more housing projects moving forward? So through the planning of our own project of a 166-unit apartment complex, the problem has slowly come into focus for us, and that's because of feasibility. And we've provided a financial brief. Hopefully, council members have had a chance to read it and understand kind of the situation that we're facing. As much as we wanted to believe otherwise, high construction costs, high taxes, and high risk in Grande Prairie mean that the numbers don't work for developers like us. We just can't justify moving a project forward if the financial investment is going to provide a negative return. Recently, living in Grande Prairie, we can see that much of the housing need in Grande Prairie has been solved by constructing duplexes and fourplexes or similar type projects. While these kind of help, they're far less efficient and more expensive per unit than larger apartment buildings. Our 166-unit apartment building would deliver housing far more efficiently at a lower cost per tenant, but that's only if the project makes financial sense. So how do we think that would be possible? Well, that's the 15-year property tax exemption that we're requesting. We really believe that it would finally tip the scales for these type of projects. It would give them a chance to cover their costs early on in the investment. That's the key. And then become more sustainable and profitable over time. Also, it's not necessarily just the benefit of us specifically, it's the benefit of other developers who might be looking at other markets that are more advantageous. And just to kind of give you an example as to what I'm speaking about, Grande Prairie's two-bedroom average rent is approximately $1,425 per month. Edmonton's, it sits 12% higher, and Calgary, 41% higher at $2,015 per month. That combined with the population growth numbers, over the last 5 years, Grande Prairie has grown about 1.4%. Compare that with Edmonton at 15%, and Calgary at an astonishing 17.5%. Those markets are far more attractive for developers who are wanting to spend or invest 40, 50, or even millions or even more in those markets. So that tax exemption that we're talking about, we just need to remember that it's not about giving up tax revenue. There is no cost to the city. It's essentially like a deferred tax revenue to get these projects built. That would really help to unlock that developer investment that we're looking for into high-value multifamily projects that otherwise won't happen. And last thing too, just as a note, I just want to clarify that we're not looking for something that is very broad. We want to suggest something that is a smart 15-year municipal property tax exemption, only for large-scale family projects, 100 units or more. That's a size of project that would actually make a significant impact for the community. And then further, we suggest that you only do that for local developers that are registered in Grande Prairie with a proven track record. And the reason for that would be to keep those investment dollars in the city. So with measures like that, projects would start to move forward and you'd attract a lot more development. And because of this, we're ready to work together. We're happy to share the experience that we have in this aspect to help the city shape those bylaws that we're looking for, to look at the numbers in a real and workable way, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want smart growth and more housing and a more beautiful Grande Prairie. So we look forward to kind of collaborating on that, if at all possible, and we're open to your questions. Just as an added note, I will say that we're essentially at the end of our due diligence and planning phase. We kind of have all the puzzle pieces put together and ready to move forward. We could move forward as soon as 1 to 2 weeks away, submitting for a foundation permit to start construction in mid-April or beginning of May. this is just the last puzzle piece that we need to kind of finally finish off our due diligence and move forward. So I'm open to your questions, and please, if you need to ask anything further to understand this better, please let us know, and as a group we can try to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Podolski and your colleagues. We really appreciate the presentation. I don't know where committee or ultimately council will land on this, but I do know I can speak for my colleagues to say that we really do appreciate you looking at this investment in our community and coming and talk to us and talking about how it can potentially work. So thank you for being here today. I appreciate that. I know Councillor Blackmore has the first question.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I have a couple of questions. Generally, when we talk about development, we like to talk about the amount of investment. So, can you give me an idea of the value or how much it costs you to build a 100-unit apartment building? What that trigger point might be?
So essentially, our cost to construct each unit is landing at around that $200,000 per unit. That's the cost of construction. What kind of really gets you is the soft cost. So the cost of construction increases when you take into account the fact that this project will take approximately 2 years to build. There's almost $2 million worth of interest payments that a person needs to make. Not to mention the cost to fill the building. The time it takes is going to be anywhere between 6 and 9 months to fill it, which prolongs those interest payments where you're not bringing any money in. So in the grand, I guess in total, the cost of construction is going to be around that $36 million mark. But then you also have added financing costs and soft costs that kind of increase it to around that $38 or $39 million mark.
Okay, so the number I guess I was looking for was roughly $35 million. And I have one other question. If council chose not to give you a tax deferral for the full 15 years, would it be effective to give you a rolling tax deferral? So, for example, 0 the first year, 15% the next year, and increasing until you reach the whole 100% at 15 years. Is that an effective approach?
I think any approach, we're open to any approach that would make financial sense. Like we said, we're willing to work together. Anything that can be done to kind of make these projects feasible would be advantageous. The only risk that I can see to doing something like that, and this is something that we're battling with, is currently, we have the budget as specified. We don't know what's going to happen for construction costs because of what's happening south of the border. To say it politely, we're kind of bracing ourselves to see certain costs increase, perhaps some that will decrease, but there is a volatility there that really makes us hesitant to start. So we're kind of looking for that safety buffer to ensure that this project remains viable in the beginning. And then later on, like I said, once the project is established and that those funds are coming in and we're covering costs, I know for sure that eventually rent prices will catch up to make it more profitable. We just don't know how long, because of the current circumstances that essentially the whole world, but especially Canada at this moment, is facing with what's happening in the United States.
Could I make a comment?
Yeah, please do.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Mayor and City Councillors. I just wanted to speak kind of from experience for a while, in Grande Prairie, we haven't seen any apartment buildings being constructed. The idea of doing the apartment came from Greg, who is my son. And so I drove around in the area, and I saw different lots in West Point, in Pinnacle, and it always struck me that those subdivisions were developed in like 2007, 2005, and those large lots for apartments building are just sitting there for the last virtually 20 years. And so we put an offer on one of those lots, which was listed for $1,250,000. And sometimes you just put those offers, and I want to be totally honest with you, for $771,000, and they accepted that offer, and we were a little bit in shock. So nevertheless, the offer was solid, and we needed to move forward. And it makes me wonder, like, why is there nobody that is moving forward with those buildings, since there is such a need for apartments in Grande Prairie or for housing in general. So that's when Greg started searching, and we went to the city. We were talking to the city officers, and they mentioned that you can do project as such on this property. And only when we did our due diligence and virtually up till now spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, we realized how expensive it is to put those projects together. So we know now why nobody wants to move forward with doing those projects. And so especially that the rents are still so low. So we're taking a bit of a risk in our hands, hoping that in the next 10 years, the rents will catch up. One thing that it's of an assurance to the city, like Greg mentioned, we moved into Grande Prairie in 1982, so it's been 42 years, and we've been trying to always hard to make the city grow because we take pride in it. A lot of the people that have made money in the city are moving those funds out of it to BC, to Vancouver, to down south, and so on. And we kind of like to invest that money in Grande Prairie. And so that's why we're looking for this exemption. And like Greg mentioned, it's not to avoid, but to postpone the taxes, because right now that property we own, it will only generate about $15,000 in taxes. But if we can put this project together in later time, we'll generate for the city $300,000 to $400,000. It's just we are putting out all the money. We're putting up everything that we own as a collateral for this building. And even if we were to, like they say, go bankrupt or belly up, someone else then will purchase the building, and city then will continue generating those taxes in time. We hope that this would never happen, but in order for us to make sure this doesn't happen, we're asking for that exemption for those large projects and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any more questions? I'm looking around the table, and one question I did have is we're going to be discussing it later in this meeting, but we do have a municipal fee rebate program. And have you been in touch with our staff and talked about that program and other existing programs that might be available to you?
We have, and so we've been speaking with development office about that, and they've been really helpful in that regard. The only thing that, because we are asking also the city to considering deferring or essentially making it exempt to apply for a building permit, because what happens is our company has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in considering this project. The building permit goes a long way for us when it comes to securing favorable financing terms, and also gives us really accurate budgeting numbers in that process. And the majority of work is typically at the back end with all the inspections and different things like that for a permit. If it would be possible, ideally, in this case, it would be to forgive that fee up front. I understand why it's there. It's to ensure that development happens and people aren't wasting the city's time. But with the type of investment that we've made, like, it just you'd be crazy not to move forward if at all possible. So it would help financially as well to essentially forgive that fee at the front.
Rather than at the back.
Rather at the back. And, perhaps there's a way that if a project doesn't move forward, the developer ends up paying a certain amount or something like that. We'd be open to that. But it's that, that fee of $300,000-ish is what we're expecting for that permit. It is quite substantial. I mean,
we could do it, but it just helps to move the project forward if that is postponed till the end rather than at the beginning of the project.
Well, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else with questions around the table, so what I'll ask is if you'll turn off your camera, I'm going to turn it over to committee for us to have a discussion now, and you're definitely welcome to continue listening if you want. You can stay on Zoom, or we're also live on YouTube right now, so whatever you prefer. And I do, again, though, want to thank you for your time coming in today and your time looking at this project and trying to make something work. We do appreciate that. With that, I'll look at committee and see if there's any business anybody wants to. Councillor Blackmore.
I do have a question for administration, 2 questions for administration. The first one is, one of the points the delegation raised was that we have a specific to Grande Prairie developers type of restriction to tax deferral. I am wondering if the Municipal Government Act would allow that, or if we would have to be provincial or, And I'm looking at the city manager for.
Yeah, I see 2 people move their mics, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke first and let him turn it over if he wants to.
The answer would be no, that we have to have broad categories of tax exemptions, and to be that narrowly focused would be contrary to the Municipal Government Act.
Yeah, that's what I thought, which is a little unfortunate, I think. But and then the other question I have is, I guess for Mr. Tarrant, we do have a development incentive grant available for large-scale developments of currently today 35 million, isn't it? Would the delegation not qualify for that?
Thank you, through the chair. The tax exemption that we have available is for commercial buildings only. This would not qualify.
So what do we have for multifamily? Can you remind me?
Yeah, through the chair, the municipal fee rebate is the program that is available for multifamily units, and so that rebates all the building and development permit fees for the project. However, as the delegation noted, those are paid out upon occupancy, so that the city has some surety that the building does go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Clayton.
I should have asked the proponent this, but Mr. Tarrant, I'm assuming you've had some conversations with the delegation. Can you remind me, is there a project in phases, or was there intent to do 166 units all at once? If you don't know,
yeah,
I'll ask.
I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Okay. Mr. Chair, would you allow me to ask that question to the delegate?
Yeah, Mr. Podolski, I do see you're still online. Are you willing to answer that question?
You bet. So essentially, it's an all in one shot project. There's economies of scale during construction that wouldn't make sense to split it. So essentially 2 years from now, we are planning on having 166 apartments complete.
And with that, Mr. Podolski, could you tell me, I'm aware of some of the other properties that you've built. Would this be the largest property that you've built? Historically, I think most of your units are a little smaller, but I'm just wondering if I'm incorrect, if you've built something to this size before.
So this would be our first project of this size. We have had rental properties before, like we do have commercial properties that the value is, it's about $25 million. We have some smaller rental units, but this will be the first time that we invest $39 million into a project. But that being said, we've spoken with local contractors who are highly qualified in constructing this. And as well, we have spoken with a number of management firms that have experience managing 700 to 1,100 doors. So this is something that's definitely possible to handle.
If you could allow me one more.
Sure.
If I recall, we met probably over a year ago. Remind me, what other amenities are part of your project? Is there retail space? What other? Is there retail space? What other amenities or additional businesses are part of it?
Originally, we were planning on adding a daycare, as well as possibly 2 retail units of some type. However, we decided against, and the reason why is it would complicate the project. It would prolong the development by anywhere from 6 months to a year. And the reason for that is because in order for that to be successful, you need to pre-lease those spaces. You can't afford to sit on them. Unfortunately, construction costs are so high right now that that before you could wait a year or 2 if you build something like that to lease it, it's not possible anymore. So that's why we decided against it. Now, as for the amenities inside the building itself, currently we are doing a common area room that individuals can use for social gatherings. There's also a couple of suites that individuals can use for family members for visitation. And then there's a number of other exterior amenities, like a patio, and then like a relaxation area, essentially. We decided against doing a fitness center because of the proximity to the multiplex. We feel that anybody that wants to do that type of activity would have no problem driving 2 minutes down the road. And there are others that we considered, but because we need to be efficient with the use of space, we've kind of whittled it down to those ones that I've mentioned. Maybe if I might ask a question, so the Municipal Government Act does mention that councils may form bylaws that do a full or partial exemption of taxation. So I'm kind of maybe sorry that I'm asking a question, but maybe I can get clarification as to why this wouldn't fall under that.
Are you able to post this?
No. So my understanding of the question that was asked earlier, and please, Ms. Burke, correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue is council does have broad authority under the Municipal Government Act to forgive taxation and to create incentives, but there's also, we get in trouble when we narrow it in ways that might be contrary to trade agreements and to other types of law that we have to follow. And one of those is it gets really difficult for us to favor local when we get to any project or any bylaws of a certain financial size, which is really frustrating when we want to advantage local companies, but also provides protection for our local companies when they go bid elsewhere. And so it's kind of a two-edged sword. So that was the question that was asked earlier, is it would be very difficult, if not impossible, for us to create something where we say, hey, we're only offering incentives to local developers. And Mayor,
thank you for.
Does anybody else around the table have any questions, or is anybody willing to do some business? Councillor Blackmore.
Well, the development incentive grants is coming up later on the agenda, and so probably that's the best place for some discussion. But I understand that it's the role of government often to facilitate future growth in a city, and this falls in that category. So I will wait for the development incentive grants to come up on the agenda before I make any recommendations or suggestions. But I think that's probably the best order of business. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. So usually with committees, we do deal with delegations right away after the delegation. But if committee's okay with it, I'm definitely okay, especially since we've got a relevant conversation to this later. I'm definitely willing to come back to this maybe under the other business section if that's what committee would prefer. Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair Bressy. The only thing I would say is I think that following this conversation, the delegation will get the information they need. So I don't know if there is a need to come back to this delegation.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I'll let committee come back to have a discussion if there's any committee member wants to do business. So yeah, so Mr. Podolski, what we're going to do is we do have more work to do on this agenda that we're going to get through before we have more wholesome discussion about this. So you're certainly welcome to continue watching through this link, or like I said, it will be on Zoom on YouTube as well if you want to watch how that conversation goes. And I also assume that staff will reach out to you, and I'm getting a nod from staff. If you're not watching, staff will reach out to you and know where the results of this went today. So we're going to move on with the rest of our meeting, but thank you again for being here. We really appreciate that.
So we're welcome to stay on Zoom then for the rest of the meeting to...
Yeah, if that's easiest for you, I mean, if you just turn off your screen and you're welcome to stay on Zoom just to watch. We won't ask you to participate again.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so with that, I will take us to our service area update, and Director Tarrant is our acting chief today.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. Under the Community Connections Department, community group funding application will launch in early April with application information and support sessions scheduled for late March. The deadline to apply for the 2026 funding is April 30th. In the museum staff continue to work on identifying buildings and approaching building owners to discuss designating them as a municipal historical resource. A neighborhood association workshop is being held on Tuesday, March 11th at the Grande Prairie Museum. Neighborhood associations and members of council are invited to attend. In terms of public engagement, stakeholder sessions for the Bear Creek Dam engagements are taking place on March 12th. The public engagement sessions are scheduled for this summer. In Invest Grande Prairie, the Growing the North conference wrapped up on February 20th after a successful 3-day event with strong attendance, sold out for the first time, and positive feedback on the speakers and sessions. Invest Grande Prairie attended the first Aztec Awards Regional Innovation Spotlight, which was held at the Dinosaur Museum in Wembley on February 19th. Congratulations to Tracy Person, Grande Prairie local, who received the Aztec Award for Regional Innovation for her work in supporting women's health. Building on the feedback from the October Invest Grande Prairie Mixer, community and recreation programs and community connections partnered to host a children's health and education roundtable on February 25th. The event had a strong turnout and positive discussions, bringing together local organizations to explore collaboration opportunities. There were 12 new business licenses issued between February 15th and 27th. 5 were home-based and 7 were commercial. In communications, various announcements have been issued, including the announcements around the rec facility in Trader Ridge. The residential snow clearing campaign is underway, and applications have opened for Camp Fire. We've also started to advertise the State of the City event for March 25th. The communications also helped to raise awareness of the recent Tour of the Trades event involving local high school students and trade staff. In legislative and executive services, election planning, voting sites, and boundaries are being finalized. Address data is being sent to Elections Alberta, data coordination for preparation of the permanent elector list. And also in Legend Exec, we hosted the Grande Prairie hosted the 4th annual Evening with Grande Prairie event in Edmonton to showcase the many investment opportunities and other opportunities in Grande Prairie to members of the provincial cabinet and many MLAs from across party lines. And we were able to discuss the release of the 2025 provincial budget. And it was great to see so many attendees and be able to showcase Grande Prairie in such a positive light. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Not seeing any, so I'll turn it back to you to introduce our grant recommendations report.
Thank you, and I will ask Jackson to come on up, and he will share the report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Willis.
Morning. The Community Advisory Committee met on February 18th, 2025 to review grant applications received for Pursuit of Excellence, Arts and Culture, and Sport Hosting grant funding following our first intake deadlines for the year. For Pursuit of Excellence, in total, 36 applications were received across a variety of sports, including speed skating, volleyball, wrestling, swimming, and golf, among others. In the different streams, we received 3 for coach development funding, 7 for official development funding, 9 for athlete development, 12 for athlete travel, and 5 for clinic hosting. The applicants that are recommended for funding in the report all met all required grant criteria. For arts and culture funding, we received 9 applications for festival funding. All of the applicants are recommended for funding at this time. Applicants are eligible for up to 50% of their total event budget, up to a maximum of $14,000 per event. We also received 2 applications for operational and performance group funding, and both of these applicants have been recommended. For the sport hosting grant, we received 5 applications. This would be for events for ice curling, stick curling, alpine skiing, artistic swimming, and clay shooting events. Through this fund, large-scale events, so these are recognized provincial, national, or international championship events, are eligible for up to $5,000. Small-scale events, which are regional events that still bring in a majority of competitors from outside of Grande Prairie, are eligible for up to $1,000 per event. No single sport is eligible to receive more than 20% of the fund per year. At this time, administration asks committee to recommend council approve Pursuit of Excellence funding in the amount of $20,250, festival funding in the amount of $88,500, operational performance group funding in the amount of $10,000, and sport hosting grant funding in the amount of $19,000, as presented in Appendix A of the report. And I'm open to any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton?
The answers, but just for those who may be watching, can you tell me, it probably says in the report, I've missed it, where does this leave the existing accounts, the balances of the existing programs?
Thank you, through the chair. So for festival funding, we do have a second intake, and this would leave $1,500 remaining for this year. Operational funding, we don't have a second intake, but there would still be $5,000 remaining in that fund. Pursuit of Excellence, with a second intake in August, there would be $22,250 remaining. $9,800 of that is already pre-allocated for scholarships, so about $13,000 for the remainder of the fund. And then sport hosting grant with a second intake in July, we would have $11,000 remaining.
And again, just for those who might be watching, this is money that was previously approved at budget, has no additional tax implications. You're just bringing forward the applications for council's approval.
Thank you, through the chair. That's correct.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I notice that the 5 organizations that applied for clinic hosting were not recommended to receive funding, and I'm wondering if you can tell me why that is.
Thank you, through the chair. The intent of the clinic hosting stream of funding is to support opportunities for coach and official development. In reviewing the applications and in discussion with the Community Advisory Committee, it was felt that these events were athlete-focused events as opposed to coach and official development opportunities. So at this time, we're going to advise that the organizers let their participants know if they are in need of financial support to participate, that they can apply as athletes through the athlete development funding stream as opposed to this clinic hosting funding stream.
Okay, thank you. I can make the motion if you're ready.
I'm not seeing anybody jumping up, so if you could do the business, I'd appreciate that.
I move committee recommend council approve funding allocations as presented in Appendix A.
Not seeing any discussion or debate, so I'll call that to question. Councillor Bressie's in favor.
And if I could just add a comment to that. I know that the applications that you receive are long and it's a lot of work going through them. So Thank you very much for bringing the recommendations forward.
Thank you.
And I know you're delivering the next report as well, but I'll see if Mr. Tarrant has anything he wants to introduce. He doesn't, so I'll turn it right back over to you.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. For the large-scale tourism report, as well at the February 18th Community Advisory Committee meeting, large-scale tourism applications were also reviewed. The total budget in 2025 for the large-scale tourism fund is $100,000. We received 3 applications for funding, with 2 of the applications being recommended for funding at this time. The first event, the Grand Con event in support of Odyssey House, requested $75,000 in funding, citing increases to operating costs as well as costs of securing talent for this event. Based on the criteria for the large-scale tourism fund, no applicant can receive more than 50% of the total fund in the year, so $50,000 is the maximum amount they're eligible for. This event has previously taken place in July. This year will be taking place from September 12th to 14th at the Bonnets Energy Center, and this is the 4th year of this event taking place. The second application received was from the Grande Prairie Traditional Powwow, who also requested $50,000 in funding for their event. This event will be taking place from June 20th to 22nd at the Terra Center at Evergreen Park, and this will be the 6th year of this event taking place here in Grande Prairie. The third application received was from the Tinseltown Winter Market, who also requested $50,000 in funding. This event also takes place at Bonnets from November 14th to 16th and is in the 6th year of operations. As you can see in the report, this event was not recommended for funding at this time. The event does raise funds for the Compassion House Foundation. And while this foundation does provide services to Grande Prairie residents, the organization is based out of Edmonton. And the funds raised through this event go towards supporting the general operations of this organization, with some difficulty in determining the direct benefit or impact of that funding on Grande Prairie residents. The event is not being recommended at this time for funding through the Large-Scale Tourism Fund. Administration's asking that committee recommend council approve the 2025 large-scale tourism funding in the amount of $50,000 for Grand Con and $50,000 for the Grande Prairie Traditional Powwow. And I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Blackmore.
The Grande Prairie Traditional Powwow has previously been held at the Bonnets Center and now is moving to the Terra Center. What's our history with funding events that are outside the boundaries of the city?
Thank you, through the chair. So in the large-scale tourism policy, in the procedure, it does outline that events hosted either in the city or at Evergreen Park or the county sportsplex are eligible for funding through this fund.
Okay, I'm hesitant about that, although I do understand that anyone traveling to Grande Prairie for that event will be staying at hotels in Grande Prairie. So there is some incentive. I'm just not sure that it's valued at the full amount of the grant.
Mayor Clayton.
I appreciate Councillor Blackmore's comments. I would just say that the county has been very supportive of other large-scale events that we've hosted in the past. The Alberta Winter Games, Arctic Winter Games, they've wrote significant checks to support significant multi-sport events that we've hosted. So I tend to, while I would love to see the event continue to be in Bonnets Energy Center, I understand the primary reason for moving the event, well, 2 reasons. Access to camping at Evergreen Park, as well as access to air conditioning in the facility. So those are 2 items that our facility doesn't have access to, air conditioning and camping. I guess my question would be, and Ms. Bieberdorf might know, in conversations with our municipal partners on previous multi-sport games, when the county was asked for support, were the amounts that were requested somewhat arbitrary? So council right now is confined by this fund that they've applied for. The parameters in the fund are pretty clear. But for example, if I recall correctly, when we hosted the Alberta Winter Games, the county supported through sponsorship a few $100,000. Are you aware of their conversations? They weren't necessarily out of a fund. Was the request arbitrary? Was the request based on some parameters that you're aware of? Historically, how did those conversations go?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressy. So we typically in the past have kind of done a 1/3, 2/3 split with previous events. So 2018 Alberta Summer Games, that was the model. We took a similar approach for 2024. It's my understanding that it comes out of their community assistance fund. It's not a specific grant that's set aside for these events.
Okay. So I think that the POWA is a great initiative that we as a city, let's call it kick-started or jump-started it by bringing it to an indoor facility. The POWA had been going on for many years, and our vision as a council was to see this event grow. I think that we've done a great job as an organization and through our facilities supporting this event. So I think for now, if that it means moving to a different facility, that the event will continue to grow, that's a win for the region. In regards to the other event there, I'm wondering if administration has any knowledge. Will the event continue at that level of sponsorship when they've asked for significantly more money? Will the event continue at a $50,000 support rather than the $75,000 that they asked for?
Thank you, through the chair. There haven't been very many specific conversations about it based on the budget that was submitted and how the revenue they've generated in the past. Obviously, GrandCon is also a fundraiser type event, raising money for Odyssey House. I do believe they've built that into the budget. They know that their costs have increased. Again, it never hurts to ask, but they are, as a previous recipient, they are also aware of some of the restrictions that are placed on the fund in terms of what's available. So again, I don't see it being something that prevents them from running the event or operating. It may cut into that bottom line in terms of the overall economic benefit they're able to provide to the Odyssey House at the end of the event.
Perfect. And so if I could, Chair, I'm not suggesting that committee or council necessarily go outside the parameters of this policy. I was more curious, but your point's very valid. So because it is a fundraiser, thank you. Yeah, just quickly, I do think these are great regional events. Yes, albeit I'm disappointed to see the event leave the heart of our city. I think that in regards to the powwow, that time will tell if this was a great move for them in growing that event. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and speak to the powwow. I'm sad to see it not in the heart of the city. At the same time, I get the need for camping, for the cultural significance, being connection to nature, and also I was there last year and I saw elders in particular in regalia struggling with the lack of air conditioning. So I really do get this event, why air conditioning with those elders in regalia especially is more of a need than a want for this particular event. For some events that would be a want. For this one, I think it might be a need. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I just have one additional question about the powwow. You did talk about the county funding of our events being 2/3, 1/3, sort of rule of thumb-ish. Do we know if they are contributing to the powwow in, I guess, a more significant way than the $50,000 we're talking about?
Through the chair, we don't have the exact amount. I do know there was an ask made for gift in kind for the facility space as well as a cash grant. I don't know the exact amount, but I know they have made that ask to the county.
It would, yeah, you can't change that, so that's fine.
And speaking of gift in kind, so we've got grant amounts in this report of what we've given to the powwow in previous. Am I correct in assuming that's our cash contribution, not our gift in kind contribution?
Through the chair, I think what's in there is a combination. I believe last year primarily it was just gift in kind that was received for that event. So it would be a combination of cash and gift in kind. They've received support through a variety of avenues over the years, so it's a little less straightforward than everyone getting it just through large-scale tourism where it's very cut and dry.
Gotcha. But these numbers are gift in kind. It's always a little bit nebulous, but these numbers reflect our best effort of capturing cash in kind. It's not just cash. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Mayor Clayton?
Sorry, just one last question. Thanks, Chair Bressy. To your knowledge, is there any additional gift in kind for GrandCon, or has it strictly been a cash sponsorship previously?
Thank you, through the chair. To my knowledge, it's typically just been the cash sponsorship through this fund. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. Is anybody willing to do business? All right, Mayor Clayton.
I would move the committee recommend council approve the allocation of the 2025 large-scale tourism grant in the amount of $50,000 to the 2025 GrandCon event. And secondly, that committee recommend council approve the allocation of the 2025 large-scale tourism grant funding in the amount of $50,000 to the 2025 Grande Prairie traditional powwow. Speaking to this motion, both of these events have historically been drivers of tourism. We know that these events are both somewhat in their infancy in regards to large-scale events, and both in about their third year in their current capacity. I look forward to them both continuing to drive tourism, grow volunteerism, and support the city and the region in regards to our goal of bringing more people to the region. The one item I forgot to ask administration, but to my knowledge, at this level of support, a report will come back in regards to financial, in regards to the event, whether or not it met our expectations. So question for Ms. Bieberdorf. I think we recently adjusted a policy, and this now would qualify for this event to have a financial report come back to committee following the event, correct?
Thank you, through the chair. That was for community group funding, but we can certainly have these groups come back. There is a grant funding report required that comes back along with financial statements, accountability, and all those components. So we can certainly ask them to come back and present as well.
So a question for Chief Lemieux. Would you like me to make a motion on that? I think that at that level of support, it's important for committee and or council to know the outcomes of these events. And I'm just, can I just leave that as a given, or would you like a motion for that?
I think we could leave it as given. We'll make a note of it and make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. So motion certainly in order. Any discussion or debate? Not seeing any, so I'll call that to question. Excellent. Thanks, Ms. Bieberdorf and Mr. Wills, for your report. And with that, I will turn it to Acting Chief Durant to talk about our development incentives and grants program update.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. So just as a quick refresher, in 2021, Council did approve the DIG program, the Development Incentives and Grants, in order to stimulate some business and development activity coming out of COVID. Since then, there's been a number of amendments to the DIG policy, and as new programs have come and some programs have expired. So we thought we'd take this opportunity just to provide a bit of an update on where the current grant programs are at. So I'll just go through them one by one and give you just a high level of idea of where the various grants are at today. So the first one is the Business Retention and Expansion Grant, which was one of the original ones passed in 2021. This is a grant that it's a tax rebate for those that increase their assessed value of commercial properties by at least $1 million through an expansion or redevelopment of an existing commercial property. To date, we've only had one commercial property owner who's accessed the grant, and the property assessed value went from 2.1 to 6.3 million, and so they were eligible for the grant that was available for that program. Under the municipal fee rebate, so this is one of the more recent ones that was passed in July of last year. This was to incentivize multifamily developments, and multifamily developments is fairly broad in this case, basically to 2 units or more. So a house with a secondary suite does qualify for this grant. Currently, we have 28 funding agreements signed, which equals about $122,000 in fees that will be rebated once the occupancy permits are in. And there is 50 outstanding applications, though, with an estimated $700,000 in fees that, should they all be approved and go through and proceed with the project, there would be $713,000 that would need to be rebated. So the majority of the applications, you can see 74 of them are for smaller units, 2 to 4 units. And secondary suites, fourplexes, those types of properties, whereas 4 of the applications are for properties with 5+ units, apartment buildings. The program is with the new business development grant. This is for tax rebate programs for properties with a value of at least $25 million. Again, commercial properties. There have been no applications since the grant was available in July of 2021. The barrier-free grant designed to assist businesses with improving accessibility at their businesses. Since April 2021, there's been 16 grants awarded. They've received a total of $128,000 in grant funding, and $77,000 remains in the fund. The beautification and patio grant, it's a 50% matching grant for any facade improvement. There's been 29 grants awarded since 2020, and they've received $352,000 in funding. And there still is a little bit of funding that remains in that program, $123,000. A recent one that was just passed in November of 2024 was the fiber infrastructure fee rebate. This program is to supply to help incentivize some fiber optic installation within the city. There was one project that applied for. It was to supply fiber in the Vision West commercial area on the west side of town, and so there was a total of $34,000 in foregone revenue not collected under that rebate program. With that concludes the updates to the program, and look forward to any questions.
Mr. Tarrant, and I will note that our next order of business after this will be actually talking about potential changes to those if we want. This report really is just about where funding is at to set up that next conversation. So with that, Councillor Blackmore.
Mr. Tarrant, I'm looking at the municipal fee rebate program, and it's good that we've had quite a number of subscriptions to that grant process. Of the 4 applicants for properties, 5 units and more, can you give me an indication of the size of those 4 applications? Are they for very large apartment complexes, or are they for like 8-plex or?
Through the chair, they're anywhere from 100 to 200 units.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have here. Yeah.
Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I don't think my comments are necessary until we get to the amendments in the policy. Thank you.
Do you move to receive for information?
Absolutely. Happy to move.
Awesome. I'll call that question.
For information.
And Mr. Tarrant, I'll turn it back to you to talk about potential amendments.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So, as we continually look to the DIG program for improvements and look for ways that we can be adapting to the community and community needs, we have a number of recommendations that we're asking committee to consider. The first one is more of a housekeeping amendment with just the fiber optics fee that we just needed to have just some wording within the current policy that would indicate that we're rating up to 100% of the municipal fees for the fiber alignment permits. So we're just asking for that to be included within the policy. The next one is with the new business development grant. As was indicated, there has not been any development in the last 4 years in terms of commercial properties over that $25 million. There has been some conversation about, could there possibly be some expansion there? one of the challenges in this grant is in developing any of these grants is we don't want to try not to incentivize businesses that would go otherwise, and that wouldn't need the city's stimulus to make the project go ahead, and so looking at this new business development grant, looking to see what types of businesses could we incentivize that would be something new to the region that might not go to the region otherwise had this grant not been there. So with that, we felt comfortable recommending that a shift in the thresholds from 25 to 18 million. Just doing a scan of other large-scale projects in the province, there was a oilseeds processing plant recently announced in Lethbridge. There was for 18 million. There's a window manufacturing plant being built in Edmonton right now for 21 million. There are some larger scale warehouse or distribution centers being built right now in the province from anywhere from that $20 to $25 million range. So if there was an openness to looking at maybe attracting some of those, the recommendation is there for that the threshold to be decreased. The other piece that we're looking at today is as mentioned before, the municipal fee rebate for the multifamily residences has been very well subscribed. Council did allocate $700,000 towards this program last year. We are currently, if every project does go ahead, we are just over 800,000. So what would have to happen is we'll do a first come first serve, which would mean that one of the larger apartment buildings would the fees for them are about 300,000 each, and so one would likely be cut off at about 200,000. And so we would do that on a first come first serve basis. So we're recommending, if council does want those projects in the queue to be funded if they do go ahead, and to give a little bit of wiggle room for some new projects that may come between now and the end of the year, we're suggesting that another 300,000 be added from the Economic Recovery Fund. And just a reminder, there's about 420,000 left in that fund that's unallocated. With that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
I do have a question for, I'm not sure who would be able to answer it, but in regards to the municipal fee rebate, do we have a tool that we could use to ensure that the projects that don't go forward pay their municipal fee, but that if they do go forward, that fee is simply not collected at the front, or is just not collected? Do we have a tool, I don't know, like a promissory note or anything like that?
Mr. Trent?
Yeah, through the chair. So currently how the process works is that the proponents are required to pay the fee up front, and there's an agreement signed that if they complete the project with certain conditions, that they do receive the rebate on the fee at the end of the project upon receiving the occupancy agreement.
I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Blackmore, but I think the question is more if we want to change that process so that we did forgive the fee up front, is there a tool we could use to make sure we actually do get that fee if the project doesn't proceed?
That's where it gets more complicated. And the reason we've gone with this approach is that most projects are comfortable knowing just that certainty at the end that they get that back and they can build that in. Us going retroactively to claim fees probably means the project was having some challenges. And so that just increased the risk to the city. It hasn't been a request from other proponents. They've been comfortable just knowing the certainty that they got it back at a certain point.
And then another question. Our development incentives and grants program for commercial properties over 35 million, so that's the amount, right? Over 35 million. Can I ask, why that would not include properties like multifamily.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. When that program was initiated, residential was not eligible. Changes have been made by the province to allow that as an option. To our knowledge, most municipalities aren't proceeding with that. When that wasn't an option, we brought forward the multifamily fee rebate as an alternative. The legislation has changed now, and it is a possibility for council to consider. Considering the uptake of the multifamily and the number of projects that are interested, it isn't administration's advice to proceed with that at this time.
Yeah, I have some concerns in that I don't think we can count on projects proceeding at this time just because of the uncertainty internationally. But one of the issues that we've really struggled with over the time that I've been on council this term is that we don't have enough workers in Grande Prairie for some organizations to move here to open a business. And we don't have enough workers because we have nowhere for them to live. And so to me, it's a little counterintuitive to say multifamily won't qualify for this when in fact it is a huge economic boost to the community as a whole. I'm looking at my fellow councillors for comments.
Mayor Clayton.
Question for administration. I think that it's great to see the initial interest in this rebate fee. How many people have actually pulled the trigger? You mentioned a total dollar amount, and that it exceeds the potential amount, and that you need to top up to support what's plausible. But how many have actually pulled the development and permit applications?
Through the chair, so everybody within everybody that has applied to that 800,000 has a development permit. So
can you give me a cost estimate to those permits? So what I'm getting at is, to Councillor Blackmore's comments, if none of these projects go ahead, what money was collected from the city that wouldn't be returned? So because these are rebates and they get them back after a certain point of completion. So how much money in fees has been collected in this regard?
I don't have that answer right at this moment. And just on that, because the rebate includes development and building permits, right? The building permits obviously being the heavier one. So while all of these have submitted, the development permits, a large, especially the larger ones, have not submitted any building permits yet, which is where the bulk of those, like for a larger apartment, you're looking at that 300,000. The vast majority of those fees are paid at the building permit stage.
I just really high level, happy to discuss. I think it's valuable to discuss and debate this with all of council. Appreciate Mr. Burke's comments that so far the subscription seems quite strong. And so knowing some of the proponents that are local and not local, in my opinion, this city's never been historically known for having a lot of multifamily builders. I don't think that's a discredit to any of the builders that do exist. I just think it's a reality. We have single family home builders, and historically we've had, a decent number of single family home builders, but we're not known for having a lot of apartments, and we're not known for having a lot of apartment builders, let's call them. So I don't support the sentiment that it should only be for local, because I think that we won't survive just on local apartment builders in regards to our demands and needs for apartments. In regards to this, I think it's a conversation for all of council. I'm happy to support or put forward these motions. Discussion and debate, though, I would lend to support administration's comments that the development and permit fees are enough. And so we've had significant interest through InvestGP and through just even through senior leadership conversations with external proponents that indicate that we will have a couple projects go ahead And so I recognize that the municipal fee rebate program does need a top up, but I think that that's a significant support, that we're showing our support, not to mention the Aquaterra fee connections that are also being removed currently. And so I'll make the motion. We can discuss and debate this as committee, and then we'll go to council, assuming this is supported by committee. So approve the amendments to policy 357, development incentive and grant programs as presented, and increase the budget for the municipal fee program from $700,000 to $1 million, transferring $300,000 from the Economic Recovery Fund. Speaking to that, I think that this is a great incentive that council put forward with the intent to want to support multi-family development in our community. That tied in with the support of Aquaterra by removing connection fees and us doing significant work on secondary suites. We're starting to see some movement. Agree that there is a top-up required on that rebate program, and I appreciate the work that administration has done to amend policy 357. Hope my committee members will support this and look forward to a discussion at council. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Certainly in order. I know, speaking to it for myself, I appreciate this going to council. I definitely agree this is a full council discussion about what do we want to do with incentives like this. I do struggle with the idea of you've got a place where 400-ish residents are living, and all of a sudden we're not collecting any money to fund municipal services. I think what's different about us and other levels of government is other levels of government have multiple forms of taxation. So if they forgive one form of taxes, they're still getting taxes off of development, where for us, property taxes truly are the only way that we get to recover from a property money for the services that delivers. So it's hard for me to see myself supporting forgiving all taxes when it gets to council. That being said, if there are some members of council that are watching this and thinking about what they'll support on Monday and are thinking they might want to support property tax relief of some sort, something I'd be kind of open to discussing is maybe there's room to forgive the supplemental property taxes and say, hey, we're not going to charge property taxes to the development on this building until people are actually living in there, actually consuming municipal services, actually paying rent. I might be able to see myself as a councillor supporting something like that, but more than that, I think I'd have struggle seeing myself supporting. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Barcy. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that point up. It was a question for administration. The parameters around that tax abatement, let's call it, are they broad? And because I appreciate Councillor Bressy's comments that a consideration of tax removal during a 3-year construction period is definitely more appealing to me than over a 15-year period. So I'm curious if it was broad. I don't recall what that bill specifically said.
Through the chair, so the legislation follows the exact same provisions as the non-residential. So as long as we have it, broad enough that it's not targeting a very specific property or a very specific builder, or a very specific type of building, then we can have that program available.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
I will support the mayor's motion, but then I will make a follow-up motion.
Okay. Well, in that case, why don't I call this motion to question? And I'll turn it back to you, Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that council direct administration to include, that's not how I want to say that. I would move that council debate the opportunity for including multifamily in the new business development grant criteria. I think that gives council a lot of opportunity to debate whether it should be this way, that way, whether it should be just during building construction, whether...
I definitely agree with your intent that councillors talk about this. I'm just kind of curious with, do we need a motion for this, or could you just as a councillor raise this for a matter of debate when it comes to council on Monday?
I see our CIO is nodding.
CIO Burke?
Okay.
The advice I'd give is that's the reason that this does go to council, is for council then to, as a group, to have this that as a debate. So that'd be the appropriate time. There's no need for a specific motion. It'll be on the agenda, this item.
Perfect.
Debate then would be appropriate.
That makes this meeting shorter.
Great. Well, so I assume you're okay with drawing that motion then, and I look forward to you raising this on Monday. I think that'll be a good and important debate for us to have. Any other business we need to do concerning this item? Keep in mind that this is going to council on Monday for all of our colleagues to discuss. Not seeing any, so Mr. Trent, I will turn to you for our outstanding items list.
Thank you through the chair. I would suggest that item 1353 is correct. Everything is correct as presented there. There's no need to change the outstanding items list.
Okay. You just move we accept it, Councillor Blackmore?
Yes.
All in favor? Rest is in favor? That motion carries, and with that, I will call our meeting adjourned. Not sure who's chairing next.